most harmful lie your kid has ever been punished for correcting. My 8-year-old daughter Luna came home from 3rd grade last winter, clutching a detention slip and sobbing so hard she could barely speak. She has ADHD and uses a quiet fidget toy to help her focus in class. Her teacher, Mrs. Reed, had taken it away, given her detention, and told the whole class kids who fidget are not paying attention, and they need to sit perfectly still to learn. She said I'm disruptive and lazy, Luna cried, hiding her face in my chest. She said if I cared about learning, I'd sit still like the other kids. I held her tight and explained that she was not lazy, and Mrs. Reed was completely wrong. I'm a licensed occupational therapist in Phoenix, and I work with neurodivergent kids every single day. Fidgeting helps kids with ADHD and other neurodivergences regulate their nervous systems and focus better, not worse. Luna just stared at me, confused. But Mrs. Reed showed us a whole classroom management book about it. She's been teaching for 20 years. The next morning, I sent Mrs. Reed an email. I told her I'm an OT specializing in pediatric neurodiversity and asked if I could stop by during her morning class to do a 15-minute lesson about focus and learning for the kids. She wrote back right away, happy for the special learning opportunity. When I walked in, Mrs. Reed introduced me to the class of 23 kids, all sitting at their desks. I heard you guys learned that kids who fidget are not paying attention and you need to sit perfectly still to learn, I said. The whole class nodded while Luna shrank down in her seat. Mrs. Reed smiled from the front of the room. I pulled up the current AOTA research on fidgeting and focus on the classroom projector, plus CDC guidelines for supporting kids with ADHD in the classroom. I explained that for many kids, especially neurodivergent kids, small, quiet movements help their brains stay regulated and focused. Sitting perfectly still actually takes more brain power than listening to the lesson. I passed around quiet, classroom-safe fidget toys, and the kids tested them while I talked, many saying it helped them listen better. I pulled up the state's special education standards, which require teachers to support fidgeting as a reasonable accommodation for focus. Mrs. Reed's smile dropped. Her face turned bright red and she kept crossing and uncrossing her arms. One little boy raised his hand, pointing to the classroom management book on Mrs. Reed's desk. But your book says fidgeting is bad. I checked the publication date, 1999. Pediatric occupational science updates pretty fast, I said. We used to think lots of things that were wrong about how kids learn. This myth doesn't just hurt feelings, it makes kids feel like they're bad at learning when they're just trying to focus. Mrs. Reed suddenly cut in, voice tight. Well, thank you for that interesting talk, but we need to move on to math now. That night, Luna came home upset. Mrs. Reed had taken her fidget toy away every time she used it that day, given her 2 more conduct marks for disruptive fidgeting, and marked her participation grade down to a D. She came home crying, saying she never wanted to go back to school again. I requested an emergency meeting with the principal, bringing printouts of my OT license, AOTA and CDC research, state special education standards, Luna's detention slips and marked down participation grade, and the 1999 classroom management book. The principal listened carefully, then called in Mrs. Reed. When confronted with the evidence, Mrs. Reed crossed her arms. This is how I've always run my classroom. I need order, and fidgeting is disruptive to the other kids. I lost it. My daughter is terrified to go to school because you're punishing her for something her brain needs to learn. You're calling a neurodivergent 8-year-old lazy and disruptive just because you don't want to update how you run your classroom. 2 weeks later, the school removed the outdated classroom management book. Mrs. Reed was required to attend state-mandated neurodiversity and inclusive classroom professional development. On Luna's next report card, Mrs. Reed wrote excellent focus during lessons. But when I offered to bring free classroom-safe fidget toys for the whole class, she told the principal they weren't needed. Now, every time Luna learns a new rule about how kids should act in class, she turns to me and says, "Dad, is this actually true or is it just a Mrs. Reed truth?"